Ladies and gentlemen, or however you identify, I have finally found the real reason. I finally understand why men have lost interest in dating and marriage, specifically in the United States of America, or you can also extend it out to Western culture. Now, the internet will disagree with me because the internet, red pill community, feminists, all that garbage content that, I went to pay attention, but attention paid me, want you to believe that women don't need men. That's the reason why. And, you know, women are only going to date men that make $1 million a year and are 6'4" with a great body and a big old schlong. The red pill community wants you to think that men are perfect beings and the prize, and that body count, OnlyFans, and all this garbage crap and content is the reason why. There's some causalities to that. I think the causes are different than the reasons. So the causes is social media. That's the cause. I'm living proof of that. Like, I won't date. I won't ever get married again. I won't ever date again. Because when I was married for a long time. I have 2 beautiful kids. It was like when I was married, I felt like I was part of a team. I was part of a group. And then as soon as things got hard, she left. She used words like, because I was going to work and working 2 jobs because things got tough, I abandoned her. Now there's more to the story than that. And I do have my faults too. I'm not blaming her. Okay. I have my faults as well. But she decided, instead of working on the relationship, she decided to leave. Ever since then, I have had to try to rebuild my life. There's the reason. There's too many men like me that other younger men and older men that have recovered that are like, I don't want to lose everything again. Marriage is a big risk because the structure of human relationships has completely gone off the rails. What do I mean by structure? Well, it's not nuclear family structure. That's a bunch of BS, because my grandmother and grandfather told me stories about the 1970s and 60s that would make you go, wow, OnlyFans is nothing compared to what they used to do. The difference is back in those days, it just wasn't talked about. You didn't have an open discussion in the middle of the internet about how you got GB or DP or whatever you want to call it. It was something that was discussed behind closed doors, not a public setting like the internet. So everybody assumes the baby boomers and the nuclear family was the way to go, and that they were just these perfect people in the world. Well, I bet you if you had them behind closed doors, away from a camera and microphones, I bet you they'd tell you stories. I know I heard some. So what do I mean by structure? Well, when my grandfather and my grandmother were married, my grandmother is a very God rest her soul, was a very outspoken woman. Very highly independent. Every time I hear one of these women screaming and yelling over the phone, I don't need no man, I don't need this, I don't need that, reminds me exactly of my grandmother. My grandmother and my grandfather were married for 47 years before she passed away. She passed before him. And when my grandmother was in one of those moods, my grandfather would just deal with it until he was done. And when he was done dealing with it, all he had to do was give her a look or say something very polite or just not talk. And my grandmother instantaneously would go, uh-oh, I've overdone it. And she would stop. When my grandfather would get to the point where my grandmother was quiet, my grandfather would stop. We don't stop anymore. The structure of the relationship is no longer let's work on things because we're two human beings that love each other or at least get along with each other. Let's get through the bad times. Let's get through the good times with smile and the bad times with smile. We'll figure it out. My grandfather and grandmother did end up very wealthy people, okay? But they didn't start out that way. My aunt is a perfect example of what's wrong with society. And my aunt was doing this before OnlyFans, and before Instagram, and before Facebook. She would jump to the greener pastures every time. My uncle, his name is Steve. Uncle Steve actually was making really good money in the 1980s and 90s, managing a landscaping architecture company. He maxed out at whatever dollar amount. He wasn't going to move up the corporate ladder. He was a very happy man. They had a great house, great life. My aunt left his butt real quick for a man that could make more money. My grandmother never did that. My grandmother used to shame my aunt for doing that. Like, why don't you guys start a side company? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do Amway? Why don't you do Tupperware? My aunt didn't want to work. My aunt wanted to be provided for her whole life. So she was married 4 times. 4 times. And then found God with her 4th husband. And now they go off and speak into the world. So why am I telling you all this? Well, I'm telling you all this because it sucks to rebuild when you're going to be 42 years old. Because every time you turn around, you're beating your head against the wall. I feel like every time you turn around, you just can't get ahead. You can't get there. And then when you run into someone that seems amazing, you're always cock blocked by social media or the world. So I'm going to show you something. So, of course, I work in the RV business. All right. I'm going to show you something. This is how rebuilding your life when you're a man, when you're going to go through a divorce, when you have big alimony and big child support payments, this is what you live in. You go down to the simplest denominator. Because this is where I live. This is what I live in. It's everything I need. I don't need anything more or less right now. It's a mess, sorry. I gotta do laundry, so I've been sorting laundry, but it's a mess. But I got a chance to rebuild. I finally am at 0. I know that doesn't sound very comforting, but I'm at 0. 0 is better than where I was a year ago. And I'm going to build on 0. And hopefully by the time I turn 42, I'll have a car that's paid for and a couple assets. But in order to get there, we have to realize that no one's here to help us. We got to do it on our own.